Alright, part two. Gonna get the clamps off here, and we'll get going with truing up the wood and getting the final shape on it. This is sycamore and walnut. Both boards are actually sourced from a local lumber mill. Both were actually like small scale, one guy operations, so kind of fun to get wood that way. I haven't ever seen. I mean, maybe I have, but I don't really remember seeing sycamore anywhere um, readily available. So it's kind of a fun find. All right, now I'm gonna get rid of the back 6 inches or so of this board. The walnut has a pretty decent crack running up it, so don't want that in the final product for sure. And that's why this whole board is, the sycamore board is considerably shorter. I plan on getting rid of it from the beginning. So here I'm cheating a little bit. I couldn't quite get the panel saw to start in that sycamore for whatever reason. So I'm using the Japanese pull saw. This whole board was just giving me problems. I had never had the plate of this saw grab by the board nearly like this. Actually, I can't recall a instance I've ever had it grab at all. So I definitely don't think I need to change the set and the teeth. But whatever you have to do to make it work, get the job done. That's what you do. You say you're gonna see my less than great form here, but I was just fed up with it at this point. So you might notice a little change here in the bench. I added a bench dog here. That's just uh, it's oak dowel that I cut. I was just having issues trying to clamp the board to clamp the board down while I was trying to plane it. Here I'm just adding some shavings to help offset the warp in the board, so that way I can actually get it flat. So starting with the scrub paint plane and then getting most of the peaks off here. And then I'm actually using the low angle jack plane to as like a reference face for flat, and I can see where the light comes through in the valleys, so I can see where the high spots are, and I can take those high spots down. And then switching over and getting this face square to that first face we flattened. And periodically just stopping and checking. Here I'm just marking the high spot just as a reminder. Probably really didn't need to do this, but the sycamore side was a little bit thicker than the non-sycamore side, and so I definitely needed to bring that down. That way the thickness of the board was equal throughout. So you start with the scrub plane because that takes off the most material. And then here, instead of using the plane, I'm using the square because I'm using that one face, that one edge face that I have as my square face. It's the reference face. Words are hard sometimes. And here you can see I'm taking off the peaks of the board. No, you're not supposed to plane this direction. I'm doing it anyway because I felt like it. But you have a really sharp plane blade and a nice wood like walnut. You can pretty much get away with whatever you want. Now, right now I'm using a roughly 30-degree bevel on the blade, or 30-degree equivalent. I can't remember which is good for a lot of high volume removal and straight grain woods. Later on, I'll switch over to a much higher angle. I believe it's a 55-degree, which gives much more of a scraping, like if you use a card scraper, which gives you closer to 90 degrees. It's able to take off a much cleaner shaving, and you'll much less likely get tear out. The only thing is it's significantly harder to push through the wood and take that shaving when you're using a higher angle blade. So that's why I use the lower angle blade while I'm taking off a lot of stock. So here I'm just switching over, and I'm speeding it up and let you guys see the whole process unedited. Not necessarily the most exciting thing to watch somebody playing over and over, I know. So I play it a lot faster. And this is a Buck & Sons plane that I received as a gift. I think they're like sub $50 at like Home Depot or something. I converted it into a scrub plane by curving the blade, and that's basically all I did to it, and it works great for that purpose. And I'm using that same reference face, so that way I'm using the same reference face on both of the surfaces. That way I make sure that they're both square to the same face. A little bit of weird color change here, sorry about that. But now I'm just removing the edges to give it a nice curve. Always find that when you put a curve on it, it feels better in the hand, and it's more touchable, if that makes any sense. I know everybody, when you see something made out of wood, you pick it up, you you feel the whole thing and then you smell it. I don't know why people do that, but it seems to be a common theme. You always smell the wood. You always handle it. And you want to feel and touch and experience it. And I think when you put edges, softer edges on things, it makes it more of a enjoyable experience. So for this end grain, I was having some issues, not getting too clean of a cut. Well, I mean, it's a clean cut, but it's something, it didn't feel right. So it was like the pores were still sticking up. So I went ahead and sanded it, and then I hit all the edges, or all the corners, and knocked those sharp edges off. So now I'm doing the final pass. I'm putting in that high angle blade that I was talking about earlier. That way I get a really nice clean surface, and I have a very small chance of getting any tear out. And you can see pretty well there that knot up in the corner. I'll be dealing with that here soon. And then here, this plane actually, I'm able to adjust the mouth, and I'm making it smaller. That way it helps with less aggressive cuts, so that way you can get a very fine shaving, and the finer the shaving, the more likely you are going to have less tear out as well. So here I'm checking to see if the bit has gotten broken through to the other side. And then now I'm drilling through the other side just to break the surface. That way, when I punch through, when I go back to the top side and finish the cut, it doesn't bust out the other side and make a huge like tear out spot by busting out some of the wood fibers. So that's a good trick to use when you're using these spade bits. Now I'm just going to sand for a bit. Alright, I pull this back up into my apartment. So sorry for the lighting, it's kind of late at night and really take the time to set up new lighting. We're just using mineral oil for this. Find that mineral oil works really well. Anybody can reapply it later. I mean, most people aren't going to take the time to reapply some wax-based finish that they have to like heat up and then work it into the wood for 10 minutes. So I find that this is the best finish that most anybody can keep up later. So now for the final product. Homemade loaf of bread there for just shits and gigs, you know. Thanks for watching. If you want to check out my woodworking Instagram page, I'll link that in the section below.